Hello, welcome back, everyone, to our Retire Overseas virtual conference, day two. I'm Kathleen Petticourt. I'm the founder and president of Live and Invest Overseas. This morning, we are switching things up a bit, and we have invited to join us a panel of current day, real life expats. Okay, Micah, welcome. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah,
Apologies.
we can hear you. Yay. So welcome. We're very glad to have you join us. Thank you for the effort, extended effort. So welcome to the conversation. Micah, I've explained, is joining us from Valencia, I believe. Make sure I'm correct.
Uh, sure. I'm actually in Boston at the moment, but very much would prefer to be in Valencia
Valencia is where you normally are hanging your hat.
right now. Correct.
Okay. And how long have you been living there?
So we've been there almost 2 years.
Okay. And you came from where?
We were in Atlanta, Georgia prior to that.
Okay. And so how did you end up in Valencia? Was it a straight line or how did the story go?
Yeah. So the short answer that I always tell people is that we moved to Valencia because we wanted our kids to learn German, which is actually a true statement. The very brief overview is our kids were in a dual language program in Atlanta at our local elementary school that taught German. So they were learning German. We were only planning to go for a year. So we were looking for places where the kids could continue their German studies so they would then be able to go back to the program when we came back. And to make a long story short, by the time we decided to do this, basically all of the schools in all of the countries that we would have thought to go to were full. But Germany has funded German language schools all over the world. And the only two that had space that we could find were in Bilbao and Valencia, Spain. We couldn't end up getting into the school in Bilbao because whatever. And then, so it was Valencia. And we went to visit. And by the time we found out they actually couldn't go to school there either, we really liked Valencia and it checked a lot of boxes for all the other things we were looking for. So we were like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for our kids to learn Spanish.
That is a great story. I love this is so much great stuff is coming out of these conversations because that makes the point. You might not necessarily get where you started out to go, but you get where you really belong.
It is so true. And I would tell you that like Valencia is the perfect place for what we were looking for. It is the beach is, it's on the Mediterranean. The mountains are nearby. It's flat. It's people are very friendly. The food is good. The cost of living is good. We can bike everywhere. We don't need a car. Like it just checked really every box. We really didn't know much about it before we got there.
Hmm.
But that's part of the adventurous, spirit, I think, of doing it.
Exactly, the leap of faith. And so it's you and your wife and how many children?
We have two kids. They're 10 and 12.
Okay. And you all have been there, did you say 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
And everybody's happy? How are the kids doing?
They are living their best life. And, there are a lot of reasons to move abroad. But I think for us, the impact on the kids was pretty high up on the list. Just building resiliency, building the ability to navigate uncertainty and roll with the punches. They were 8 and 10 when we got here, and they're both basically fluent, which is really frustrating for those of us that are not fluent. None of us spoke
Right.
Spanish when we got there. But now it's great. Our 10-year-old, like if we need to go to the doctor or the bank or something, we can just bring him with us and he can let us know what's going on.
Exactly. You have to let go of your ego entirely. Our children speak for us in France and in Panama because their French and Spanish is much better than Lee for mine, and their accents are definitely better. And they're always correcting us if we try to speak. It's easier if they just say it themselves.
Yeah, totally.
So, are you still working?
Yeah. I what I do is very strange. I host a live game show, and so I travel back to the U.S. Periodically to do tours of the show, which is why I'm in the States right now. And my wife works remotely, so we have the flexibility. The pandemic was terrible for a lot of things, but one of the things that it really made easier was the ability to take your job and do it from somewhere else. And so we both essentially work remotely.
Okay, well, that's great. And so I've asked the others, and I'll ask you now. what are your three favorite things about being where you are in Spain?
Yeah. So definitely my number one favorite thing is the independence and like just everything that my kids can do in Spain that they can't do in the US. So like our 10-year-old will walk 20 minutes to the central market by himself and go buy things from the different vendors and walk home completely on his own. We probably wouldn't let him cross a busy street to do something like that, even if it was 100 meters from our house in Atlanta. But outside of that, the pace of life is just so much more pleasant. People are out and about, they're friendly, they're smiling. In Atlanta, and just my personal, viewpoint on living in the States is that everybody's just in such a hurry. And we get together with our friends. This will segue into number two, spending quality time with people.
Mm.
We get together in the park. There's like this park that runs through basically the length of Valencia called the Turia. That the community, it used to be the river, and in the 1950s, the community engaged in this immense civic engineering project to move the river outside of the city, and they turned what used to be the riverbed into a 9-kilometer green space. And it is just such a wonderful part of life. And we live 2 blocks from it. So we can go play there, we can ride our bikes there, we can go for runs. So we have picnics a lot of times with other friends in the park, and we're there for hours. And if we wanted to do that in Atlanta, we would need to plan that like months and months in advance. And people would have like, well, we can be there for an hour and a half, but then we got to take
Right,
the kids
right.
this thing. And I love the food, honestly. Like there's the Central Market in Valencia is one of the biggest in Europe. And I love the experience of walking there, practicing Spanish, buying, produce from the vendors and cooking it that day. And it tastes better. And it's a lot cheaper, and that's not bad either.
So I was going to ask you about that if you don't mind. Your overall cost of living in Valencia is less than it was in Atlanta.
You know, it's really interesting. So I would say the answer is yes and no. Yes, our day-to-day expenses are much less expensive. But I think we end up probably spending pretty close because we do so much more stuff.
Hmm.
We travel a lot more than we did when we lived in Atlanta. So, it's just we're shifting money that was going to just,
Right,
I don't know, piano lessons to now we're taking a trip to Copenhagen for the weekend. So I'm
right.
much happier with where our money is going than prior, but definitely like to go out for a night for dinner, like my wife and I, is probably half the price of what we would spend in the States. And like a bottle of wine at a restaurant's like 12 euros. And that we're just like, I can't believe it's so cheap.
We
And
spent a lot of time
oh,
talking about how cheap wine is all around the world. We all
oh
have
my
our
God.
priorities.
Yeah.
All right. So, Micah, what about Valencia is does not make you happy?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty similar to what others have said already. The bureaucracy is absurd. We've been there almost 2 years. We started the process, we had a 1-year visa. We started the process of renewing it last November, and it's still not done. And we will have already, as probably will have been there another almost full year after our residency has expired. And that's just because things take forever. But
Right.
to I think it was Jeff's point, like no one seems to mind. No one's like knocking on our door to kick us out. So I appreciate that. But every time I fly back, I'm sort of like, all right, fingers crossed. It's gonna be time to renew again when
Right.
we get the
Well,
renewal.
that's an interesting it's an interesting point because we've had the same experience in Panama where all these things are true as well. And I know Ariel will he'll have his insights to share. But in our experience in Panama, right, the bureaucracy is it's mind numbing. The process is it can be just maddening. It doesn't make sense. It never works, and it takes forever. But it is just what it is, and so you go into it knowing that. But so I wonder. So that would be the question because when it comes down to things like residency, though, you worry that there could be real consequences. But you've been okay so far.
So far, so good. I will say, like been working with a company that helps navigate the bureaucracy of the visa application process. And for us, and I'm like, I hate spending money on things that I could in theory do myself. But this is one where like every dollar we have given this country, this company has been worth it because they're taking care of it. And they just
Right.
tell us when we need to do something and where we need to be when we need to do it. And that definitely takes a lot of stress off of our plate, even though it costs money. And I feel like a failure because I'm not, taking care of my own things. But
I've
um,
heard people say that before, and you're not failing. I think you're being very smart. Why go through the stress and the hassle if you don't need to become an expert in those things?
right.
There's no payoff in your life to being expert in those things.
That's right. It's so true. So I think we find that, we are assuming all is good until told otherwise. So we are definitely placing a lot of faith in, the system and in the people who are representing us in the system. But Spain definitely has an atmosphere of like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Everyone's sort of talking about the bureaucracy and how long it takes things to happen. And it is part of like, you have to know where you're moving to. And I just feel very strongly that like, there's the trade-off, right? If you want to have Amazon delivered to your door like 5 hours from now, then someone's got to do that job, right? And in America, like that's what happens. So like everything's on time in America. You have a doctor's appointment, it's probably going to be around the time that it says it is. The bus says it's coming at this time, it's probably going to be around that time. So everybody's like, got to do these things exactly when they say they're going to do them. And it's not like that in Spain at all. But I would say overall to the betterment, though it does make it frustrating when you have a doctor's appointment and you get there at 3 and you don't get seen until, 4 or 4:45 or something like that. That doesn't happen that often, but it's all sort of relative. You shouldn't expect anything to happen exactly when it says it's going to happen. But the trade-off in the lifestyle of people just taking it slow to me is so much more valuable. But it is hard to make plans when you need to get something done.
Right. Okay, these are all really great tips, and I appreciate hearing them myself. All right, my final question for all our panelists. If you were to give a couple of 2 or 3 specific points of advice to someone who is where you were years ago when you were dreaming, beginning to think about making this move, imagining a new life in a new country, what do you wish someone had told you back then to help you make the process more efficient, go faster, less hassled, less stress, just work out better? What would be the best tips you could pass along?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I always tell people, I was literally saying this to my sister this morning, is like, this is so much more feasible to do than you realize. Like you think that this is like an undertaking that is impossible, but it is not that difficult. It does take effort, but it can be done, and it can be done much, much more easily than you think it can. You just have to, be proactive. And I think that's what I would tell myself going back is like, just start working on it and you'll get there. And again, like I said, I mean, the world has never been easier than it is now to move abroad. There are so many things that make it so much easier to do, not just in terms of like, okay, I was working there, but now I can work remotely here, but just like expat Facebook groups. I mean, you can meet people. We moved to Valencia and felt like we found community, which is probably the hardest thing when you think about moving abroad and being away from everyone that you know.
I think often biggest concern, that I'm going to be all alone in a place where I know no one, I don't speak the language. Oh my gosh, how will that work?
That's right. And to be clear, like we don't only want to spend time with expats. Like we moved to experience the local culture and we want to immerse ourselves as much as we can. But it is nice to find people who are similar to you and are going through the same types of things. And Facebook is terrible for a lot of things, but it's really great for finding other people with a common, premise.
Right.
So we have found people very quickly that we could plug into and get to know and rely on for advice and help and stuff like that. So I would just say, like, try not to feel overwhelmed. Just take it a little bit at a time, but know that you can do this.
Okay, awesome.